Okay, so in this tutorial we'll study about the Spring annotations. In the last tutorial I told you about the AutoWire attribute and how it works, and it also told you that along with this AutoWire attribute we have an annotation also, that is @AutoWired, which will work the same way attribute works. So the annotation first is @AutoWired. So this annotation helps Spring to inject the dependency into the appropriate member variable. And let's see how it works and what all changes we need to do in our class in order to make this working. Now I want that these three member variables, that is address1, address2 and address3, should be injected by AutoWire image. So I can just write the annotation from the Spring framework, that is, see, so you have an auto-wired annotation. I want this member variable also to be auto-wired, so we need to use this annotation on the top of every member variable you want the auto-wired to be done. So this is the first change I made, and when we are doing this we can remove this auto-wired attribute because that annotation is working now in the same way. It just I'm telling you the another way to auto-wire using the annotations approach. The working remains entirely same, and this pin code I don't want to auto-wire. This will be the one which will be taken from the spring.xml. Though I have commented it out over here, so we'll uncomment it later. So we have done this auto-wired and used it on the fields. Now, so you must be thinking that the work is done. No. When you are using an annotation, you need to register the bean post processor for these annotations in my spring.xml to make these annotations working. Otherwise, this will not be auto-wired. Like if you can see, if I try to run it, I'll get the null pointer exception because it is not auto-wired. So along with using the annotations in spring.xml, you need to configure your bean factory post processor for the annotation. For the each annotation you are using, like bean, I can just simply write class. That's it. If we go to the manager, in the same package I have a bean post processor for this annotation. You can check it from your reference libraries. In the beans factory.annotation, you will be having your auto-wired annotation bean post processor. I'll just copy it from here only. Can remove the class. So now if I try to run it, it auto-wired it to all the three member variables. So this is the another change you want to do when you're working with this auto-wired annotation. And you must be wondering that if I'm writing, say, another annotation, I need to register its own bean post processor again. So that becomes quite cumbersome. So we have an alternative to that also. So we'll just see as we move further. Okay, so other than that, we'll see how this pin code will be there. So if we go up, let me just uncomment this. So it has taken the value from the pin code also from the XML file. That is the mixing of this annotation and the spring.xml. Other than this, I want to tell you about the auto-wired annotation is that this annotation, it's not that it needs to be used only on the field. You can use it on the setter method also and the constructor also. It will work the same way. Like let me try to do the mixing of these. Before doing that, let me tell you, you must there's one thing, that how this auto wiring does. By default it does by name or by type or by what thing. It will try to auto wire by type first. That is, it will try to look for the bean with the name address over here. But then you must be thinking that we are having 3 beans. Why it did not show an error just like an auto wire attribute? Because when you are using annotations, first it try to look for type, but if there is multiple beans of same type, then it will automatically take by name. It will move to name. From class it moves to name. So here also it finds the 3 ones, that is by address 1, address 2 and address 3. So it will take this auto wire by name. So this is the important thing. Here it will not show an error if it finds a multiple bin with the same type. If it does so, then it will move to by name. So by default it does it by type. Okay, so we are just moving this auto wire annotation on the setter method. Like for address 2, I want to set it using an right, we can do it. And for address 3, say I want to do it using a constructor. So we will study all 3 over here. Now in the display data, in the manager class, I have used the auto wire annotation on the field, on the setter as well as on the constructor. So let's run it now. Yes, we are able to get the same results we are getting earlier. So auto wire annotation can be used on the field, constructor and the setter method, and by default it checks for type, but if it finds a multiple bean with the same type, it will automatically move it to by name, unlike the auto wire attribute. Clear? So this is about the auto wire annotation. Just one thing is left over here. Along with this auto wire annotation, you can also have one more annotation, which is @qualifier. What does that mean? As the name itself says, it qualifies for something. So yes, you got the qualifier. Say I just write over here, this is an address bean, right? So what's the advantage of it? Now in the spring.xml, this address one was being binded to this by name, but I don't want that address 1 should be there. I want the same address 2 to the member variable it's taking. So what I can do is I can write with this bean qualifier, and what its take is the name. Now I am qualifying this bean to be an address bean also. So it will make the first address same as the address 2. Sorry, it doesn't take the attribute name, its value. So now if you try to run it, you get the values Chandigarh, New, Ludhiana and Delhi. It's doing it by name. Okay, so it will take another, it will take the name only. So what we are getting is over here, you can see, if you run it, yeah, it's taking the first address is same Chandigarh, New Ludhiana and Delhi only. It's just that if suppose, yeah, so it's taking like the address 1, this, and address B and the address 3. Though I have used the qualifier address bin, no, but if it finds the second one, why it will go to the another one. So that is why we are getting the same one, but it's just that the another annotation which you can use along with the spring dot with the auto-wired annotation. Okay, so let's just study one more annotation, that is the @required annotation, and let's see what does it mean. So here if we see, let me just comment this out because it's not making much significance. It's just like qualifying some bean to be the address related bean, so you can use the name. Okay, so now I have done address 2 and address 3. Okay, fine. So let me just not auto wire the address 1. Okay, so I will not auto wire it. Fine. So now in the spring.xml, address 1 is there, 2 is there, and 3 is there. Fine. So what it will do is it will show you a null pointer exception because that will remain unwired, right or not? So when you are running it, yes, you get the null pointer exception, and at the manager point of time. So I don't want that null pointer exception should be shown. I want that this instantiation is mandatory, this is being required, and this check should be performed at the time of bean factory only. So at initial stage of time only, it should instantiate the bean. When it's instantiating the bean, at that point of time only it check that whether this is being set or not, and if not, it should not move further. So for that I will use the required annotation. Yes, required is disallowed for this location because this is not used on fields, it's only used on the setter methods only. It will not be used on the fields like the auto-wired annotation was used on fields and the constructor as well as the member variables. So that is done. But again, one more thing we need to do, we need to write the bean post processor for this annotation also. And let's just check what's the name of this. You will have it in your spring beans. Let's just copy. Fine. So now it will not move till this method, like it will not go to this line. At the time of this only it will show you the error that this is very necessary. Yes, it is. Just a second, it is unsatisfied dependency exception. What did we use? Okay, sorry, we used the dot class. Yes, bean initialization exception only. So it is showing you over here only that error creating with this bean name manager at the time of bean instantiation failed. Why? Because this property is required for the bean manager, so it does not move further to the line of manager dot address. So before that only it shows you an error. So that's all about the required annotation, that you will not get the null pointer exception but the exception before only. And that's it, the required annotation. and it is used on setter methods. Okay, so this is about the two annotations, and we'll study about the another annotations in the next tutorial.